So let's get started. My model today is this little fishing cat that I got from one of those mystery boxes. I start with my base. These are my dollar shadow boxes from my local craft store. And the first thing I do is I get rid of that hardware and I give everything a nice sanding. I'm only going to use a little bit of land in this, so I cut out a shape that I like. Then using this 1-inch pink foam, I cut it out using a sharp X-Acto knife or a box cutter. Now that the basic land shape is done, I'm going to start working on the dock, and for that I'm using these wooden skewers and these coffee stir sticks. I cut those skewers down to make the posts, give them a sand and some light roughing up with a blade, just so they look a little less perfect. Here's the basic size I'm going to use, and so I start cutting down the coffee stir sticks to the right size. Some of them are smaller than others, and those will be where the posts are going. I'm using some tape flipped over as a base, and this just allows me to place these down without them, blowing around and getting lost. I'm going to stain the wood base now, and I start by spritzing it with some isopropyl alcohol, and then I'm going to use these alcohol inks and stain it. I use the mist of the alcohol first. That allows the other alcohol inks to soak into the wood a bit easier. This is a first layer of Mod Podge, and this just seals the foam up as a first layer. Here I'm cutting the dock to shape so that it doesn't stick over the edge of the diorama base. This is just another layer of sealant. This is Mod Podge mixed with water. I also paint the dock using some brown wash, which is a mix of brown acrylic paint and isopropyl alcohol. I then paint specific boards with these two different colors here. And this just makes the entire thing look a little more natural. Like maybe some of the boards were replaced or some of them faded in different times and different colors. Then I cover everything in another brown wash. This one is a lot more of a darker brown than before. I hit it with a dry brush. This is just that same sand color from before, and this adds that old, weathered, dried out look. Here's another layer of watered down Mod Podge, but in this case, I'm using it to stick down the dirt, which I'm going to do sprinkling on right now. And this is just plain dirt that I found outside. I put it through a sifter just so I have the finer, sandier stuff. And this works great for bases. I use it on almost every single one. I then paint it with a watered down brown paint, and the water just helps it sink into all the little sand particles and dirt particles. Using this desert yellow acrylic, I give it a dry brush, and this just adds more color variance. I'm adding some pond foliage using this Wooden Scenics bushes, and I rip some of them up, add some watered down Mod Podge, and stick them where I want to stick them on the base. This is really thin styrene. It's a type of plastic. And I'm cutting off these slivers so that I can make some other foliage. These are sort of like reeds or watered grasses. Painting the edges black. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with these, but I decided to go with black just to keep everything clean looking. For the water, I'm trying this Easy Water from Woodland Scenics. It's the very first time I've used this, and I really only saw it for the first time a couple days ago. They're these little clear beads. You put them in a disposable metal container, heat it up on a stove for a few minutes, and they melt into a clear plastic that you can then pour into whatever project you're working on. And at the beginning it worked really well, but as you'll see soon, I had quite a bit of trouble with it when it comes to bubbles. I wanted to try this over resin though, because resin can be kind of expensive and a bit toxic. So I wanted to give this a try. And as you can see here, those bubbles start coming up from the edges insanely fast. Even though I put multiple coats of paint and Mod Podge, to try to keep that from happening, it still happened. So I heat it with my heat gun and a bit from a lighter. And it worked. I did get a clear pour eventually. But there are certain areas on the wood that I ended up burning on accident because I was rushing with this. End of the day, I really had more time than I thought I did because I was in resin mindset, where if you don't get those bubbles out right away, they harden and you can never get them out. With this though, you can remelt it and eventually get them all out. Eventually I did get most of the bubbles out, but as you can see, I went a little too hard on the heat gun and melted some of my foam. So I'm going to take some of that foliage mixed with Mod Podge and push it in place and just cover up my mistake. Here I'm just doing a bit of color correction and matching so that everything looks uniform. I made this tiny bucket off camera using the bottom of one of these game pieces. I upgraded his fishing rod a little bit, and for the fishing line, I'm using some of the 38 gauge copper wire. And for the bobber, I used one of these really tiny little beads. As you can see around the edges, I got some separation with the easy water. I think this is because as it cooled, it shrunk slightly, but it was enough to pull away from the 90-degree walls. Luckily, since it's right in the corner, you don't really see it, so I don't mind. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you like this video, consider dropping a like, consider subscribing. Any comments, questions, or concerns, put them down in the comment section. I'll try to get back to you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.